guys, Howard here with How to Play Great Blues Solos. This is lesson number 4 in the series. And in this one, we're going to talk about adding classic double stops to your playing. But first, let's do a quick review of lessons 1, 2, and 3. Now, in lesson 1, we talked about the simple act of adding major thirds, or the thirds, of each chord in the blues progression to the basic minor pentatonic scale. So we had an A7, a D9, an E9, and then maybe an E7 sharp 9 on the turnaround, okay? And we talked about targeting the major thirds to make the blues scale or the minor pentatonic scale sound more interesting. Etc. and so on, okay? And then in lesson number 2, we talked about adding what I called chord scales to the 3 chords in the progression. You've got a chord scale for the A7 chord, a chord scale for the D9, or D7 if you like, and one for the E9. Back to the D9. Back to the A7. So if you haven't checked out those 2 lessons, by all means definitely do, because there's a wealth of information in those, okay? So that would be how to play blues guitar, how to play great blues guitar solos, lessons 1 and 2. And then in lessons 3, we talked about combining the major pentatonic with the minor pentatonic, which can be a bit challenging for a lot of players. But what I mentioned in that lesson was predominantly adding that major pentatonic once you hit that 4 chord, the D9. So you might be on the A7 and playing in the minor pentatonic, and it sounds quite nice, but then when you go to the 9, or excuse me, when you go to the D9, and back and forth, okay? So those 3 lessons are very important in relationship to this one, okay? So we're going to introduce just classic double stops, blues double stops here. If you'd like to take a deeper dive after this lesson into the double stops, you can check out my lesson, Double Stops Explained on Guitar. But for this particular lesson, just expanding your basic blues guitar playing, we're just leaving them right in the middle of the blues, okay? So we are relating them to the blues strictly in this particular lesson, okay? So here's the deal. If you got an A7 chord, okay, and you look at the major third of the chord, that would be the 6th fret with your 2nd finger on that A7 chord. That's sort of your jumping off point for the first double stop. So you grab that note and you grab the 5th fret on the 1st string. Right? You can play them individually. You can hybrid pick them together. You can do it however you want to do it. And what happens is you have a descending double stop pattern and an ascending double stop pattern. So once again, this is really important. This is how you find the double stops that you're looking for. Take that down a whole step. Then 2 and 2, 2nd fret and 2nd fret, same 2 strings, G and E. And then finally open. So you have 2 of these, and then 2 of those, okay? And that is your descending double stop pattern for the blues. And then you have an ascending pattern which starts on the exact same spot. But then we go 7 and 7, 8 and 8, 9 and 9. And in some cases you can skip 8 or not. Okay, so those are your 2 patterns, descending and ascending. So what that means is when you go to the 4 chord, which is going to be a D7 or a D9, whichever you prefer, you want to spot that off of the bar chord. So you want to go to the 10th fret for that D7 chord, but you do the exact same thing. Starting with that finger, the major third of the D7 now, we form that shape. 2 of these, 2 of those. You can see that on the tab, but there you go visually. And then the ascending pattern. Okay, so we've got A and we've got D. So now we need E, of course. So think about your E7 bar chord way up high. Once again, with that finger, the major third. And ascending. Okay, so there's your 3 double stop patterns, descending and ascending for each of the chords. And of course, you want to apply them to the chord that's being played in the progression as the music's going by. So I'm going to give a brief example, kind of blatant, okay, just outlining the double stops for you for the most part. And then we'll put together a practice solo, an example solo, along with on-screen tab that kind of brings all these ideas together, targeting the third, using the chord scales, a bit of the major pentatonic, and the double stops, okay? So here's just a brief example of the double stops, really, like I say, blatantly laid out. Now, as a quick note, you can definitely play these double stops in different ways and different places on the fretboard. You can play D down here, for instance, and so on, okay? And but we're just keeping it simple for this lesson and outlining the most commonly used ones, okay? For a deeper dive, like I said, you can check out my double stops on Guitar Explained, and it goes into all the other ways that you can play double stops, okay? But for now, let's do an example solo complete with on-screen tab, bringing all 4 of these ideas together, targeting the major thirds, adding chord scales, combining the major and minor pentatonics, and of course adding double stops, okay? So here we go. So there you go, how to spice things up a bit, right? And really play some great blues solos. So once again, it's a matter of targeting the thirds, adding in the chord scales, as I call them, combining the major and the minor, and of course, double stops, okay? If you want to take a deeper dive into all of this in a blues framework, you can check out my Blues Rock Guitar course. I'll put a description to it in the box below. And if you're an intermediate player, you can just start with part 2 of it, the second part. It's in a 2-part series. But if you're just getting started, you might want to check out part 1 as well, because that really discusses the basics of the blues scales and the chords and how things work, okay? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks as always to everyone, and I shall see you in the next video.